The Cabinet meeting. It's now 7 p.m. It's now 7 p.m. and I'd like to start the meeting. I am Councillor Andrew Jefferies. I would like to remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded for publication on the Council website. Item 1, apologies for absence. As I can see my Cabinet here, I think there's no apologies.
Just one from the Director of HR and Transformation.
Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the Cabinet meeting on the 12th of July 2023 to be approved as a correct record. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? No? Happy for the minutes to be approved? Thank you. Do I do the exempt ones? I do as well, yeah. So members have also been provided with a copy of the exempt minutes. Are there any comments on the accuracy of those minutes? No? So the exempt minutes are approved. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Item 3, I've not agreed to any items of urgent business. Item 4, does anyone have any declarations of interest to make? No? Thank you. Item 5, statement of the leader. So tonight's meeting is a packed agenda, and I would like all members to contribute to the debate. Even though we've discussed all these matters in great detail at both political and informal Cabinet, this meeting will be the first time for the public to hear our thoughts and conclusions to all of these reports, so please join in. I am rather disappointed, though, that there are no members of the executive, there are no non-executive members here tonight to ask questions, particularly as there is an extraordinary council meeting tomorrow evening at a cost of nearly £3,000 to the council taxpayer, at which 5 councillors are posing questions that they could have so easily asked here tonight at Cabinet, without incurring costs to the council taxpayer. Since the intervention by commissioners, not one of the 5 executive members calling for this meeting, to my knowledge, have attended a Cabinet meeting to ask the executive any questions. A perfect opportunity for the executive to be held to account in a public arena. This evening is the first Cabinet 1 year on since the government sent in commissioners, and we have come a long way in the last 12 months. There is still a great deal to do, but I firmly believe we are now in the recovery process and making progress to restore the council to be able to deliver the services the people of Thurrock need and want. Thurrock has a bright future, and I, along with all of us in this room, should look forward to delivering it for everyone in Thurrock. Thank you. Item 6, briefings on policy, budget and other issues. Councillor Carter.
It's all right, Councillor Jefferies, isn't it? I just bring that closer. I just wanted to provide Cabinet with a brief update on the concrete issue we've had in schools. The most recent briefing update you have received as members remains to be the most up-to-date information we have at this time. Yesterday I attended Children's Overview and Scrutiny to see the scrutiny provided, as they had called this as an item of urgent business, and there wasn't much scrutiny, and they've called it back in November's committee. But I just want to reassure members that whenever there is an update, you will be given it. And these briefings will go out pretty much as soon as we get the information. And I'd like to thank the team and the leader for their work on this. This work while we've been working through this at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. I'd like to put on record as well my thanks to the team. Sheila Murphy, Michelle Lucas, who did a fantastic job keeping us informed and making sure our schools have been able to open where they haven't been able to open to provide alternative accommodation. So, thank you. Item 7, petitions submitted by members of the public. I'm not aware of any petitions. No, thank you. Item 8, as I said earlier, I'm not aware of any questions submitted by non-executive members. No. Matters referred to the Cabinet for consideration by overview and scrutiny committees. No, nothing. Okay, so item 10, progress on Thurrock Council's improvement and recovery. So members have the report in front of them. I mean, I think it's fair to say that the report is slightly a look back at where we were and what we've actually been doing over that period of time. As I said earlier, I firmly believe this report backs up the message that we're now in recovery. We're no longer in crisis. We are starting to make recovery. We've made a number of changes and almost improvements to things like governance, the way that reports are written, the way reports are sent to Cabinet, to ONS. They're much better reports, giving both Cabinet and ONS and all members a better opportunity to scrutinise these things. Finance, as it says, we've got a clear plan of where we're going, what we're doing to reduce the debt. We're working with other organisations. We're no longer in silos, which we were before. So, looking forward, we are, establishing a clear direction, and we're making it clear that there are still some difficult decisions to take. But as I said earlier, I think the future does look slightly brighter. Just one last thing I'd say: the culture change that it mentions in there as well. And I think we've all seen a significant change in the culture. Still some way to go, but there has been a change in the culture, the way that officers and councillors interact, the way that people that work in this building are able to carry out their job. So with that, would any member like to comment? Sorry, Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Leader. I was reading through this, and I do agree that it's nice to see movement in the right direction. I just wanted to bring members' attention to page 24 of the report under section 3.4. It lists achievements to date, and one of those was report writing training secured for senior officers. Frankly, I wasn't too sure what that is as an achievement to date. Like, it would have been an achievement if training had been completed. So I was just curious about that, if that has happened yet, or if it could have been worded a bit better.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Arnold to answer that question.
Yeah, report writing is well underway. In fact, it's due to finish this month. So, but within that, there's quite a few other bits and pieces. So, yes, it's recognising that the style of the way reports are written, the templates, the executive summaries, that all needs to be assessed as well. And Democratic Services are now looking at that, as well as ensuring the training programme. So you should start to see a change in how the report is presented and the information that's on it, and we're trying to make sure that we improve the substance within the report as well as the understanding from the improvements in writing them.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Leader. Just really, I want to put on record, I think this is really handy for members across the chamber to actually go to one place they can see immediately, looking back a year straight away. I think it's really important this gets to full council as soon as possible, to give all members across all members in Thurrock the chance to actually sit and get their teeth into this, to make their comments known looking back a year. And seeing these come quarterly is really, really handy, I think, as well for the people, residents in Thurrock, who are able to suddenly go, no, there is actually a stream of information reporting back straight away, rather than waiting to see it. They can actually see the active work, and it's laid out very clearly what we're doing. So I think going on, as you say, there is still a lot. We've had a really good year so far getting back on track. I think we've got a lot of work still to go. It's not just over yet, but I agree we're getting in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Leader. I think I agree with everything that Councillor Cockshaw just said. It is important that this comes to full council, and people know that there is something going on. But I'm just a little bit disappointed that we've all worked very closely with commissioners and been as open as we can, but there's actually a heading on this report that says commissioners' comments, and it's blank. I mean, it would be nice to see some comments from the commissioners from time to time to let people know that they think the same as we do.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. So just so Cabinet aware, the commissioners are in the process of preparing a report to come to Cabinet that will go to...
No, going to council.
Going to full council. We'll go to full council, and we will see sight of that before it goes to full council. Any other member wishing to... Councillor Maney?
Thank you, Chair. A comment really than a question, if I might. Just in relation, I mean, I agree with the recommendations, and I look forward to the quarterly reports. But I think from people looking from the outside in, I wouldn't want them to think that's when we're looking at the improvement plan is something we're working on collectively and individually every day. So it's not like, you know, we're just going to revisit this quarterly. That's the official. That's going to be the reporting mechanism. But I think you'll agree that, you know, it's something we're doing every day. We're working towards the improvement plan. We have made progress, as colleagues have said, but it's actually something we do every day. The question I have is in relation to the Constitution Working Group. It tells us that it's been established, and if I've missed it, apologies. But has that actually sat yet? And when can we expect some kind of report or feedback from that group? Because I think there were some serious failings in our constitution, as we know, and we need to get them right. And I just wonder when we're going to see some interim sort of report on that.
Councillor Arnold.
Yeah, we've met once. We've established some terms of reference. We've started to look at the process because we've introduced the senior leadership governance constitutional group as well as the members working constitutional group. So it was how those two fit together and we'll work together and work plans. So that was the first meeting, and so the next one we can really start the nuts and bolts of what we're looking at. So if that has that been shared, that the or it's got to be approved? Yeah, if as he comes in there.
Yeah, monitoring officer.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Maney, for the question. So, as Councillor Arnold has emphasised, the meetings are now in place. They will happen regularly, and we are going through each section of the Constitution. At the first meeting, we discussed the financial regs, and we are currently in the process of reviewing them and finalising them. And then once they're agreed, we'll take them back to members, to the constitutional group, and then what you will see is certain sections come in. I don't want to use the word drip feed, but rather than just land the whole constitution at full council, we will be bringing reports back to full council as and when the members' working group and the General Services Committee agree them, they will then go. But work is underway, and the group has met, and we've had some really good debates and discussion at the meetings. So a lot of work is going on.
And just to concur with what Councillor Manager said, I think everyone in this room is living, breathing, sleeping the recovery plan every single day. So you're quite right to make that point. Councillor Snell.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It's in relation to the vast amount of change that we have already gone through and we are going to go through. And I know that you've attended at least one staff roadshow to get feedback from the staff about how they feel about where we're going and what the feedback is. So that's my question to you is, has that been beneficial and what kind of discussions are going on and what's the feedback you're getting from the staff?
Thank you. For me, certainly, and I think I can probably speak to for the Chief Executive as well, they're really useful. Staff have found it useful speaking to us and giving us feedback. There isn't, unfortunately, anyone here from HR to be able to... Yeah. Oh, apologies. Sorry. For me, yes, really useful, and I think for the staff, the ones that I've spoken to said they found it really useful to give us that information. In actual fact, I won't say which department it was, but there's one particular department went away from the meetings that we had and have come back to us with a report of how they can actually make some savings and how they can improve the workings of their department. I'm not going to say who it is because it'll give the game away, but you will be seeing that report at some point. We've shared it between ourselves, and it was really exciting to see that the staff in that department really wanted to take that forward. But if you'd like to add anything to that.
Yes, I would just say that there are ongoing focus groups and there's continual loops of feedback as we go through this process.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Leader. In terms of engagement and member engagement, there's, I know the IRB group are going to the various members' groups to start to get some focus ready for the enhanced plan. So that's happening over this month and I think the beginning of next month. In respect of the governance board, we've talked very much about the project book, which is the we get each month we get that highlight of the underneath project books, the hundreds, I think, of pages of project books. And there's quite a bit of work being done to be able to make a live version of that project book so that we can see up-to-date information, and the members will also be able to access that for openness and transparency. So that work's ongoing, but I can see the officer over there nodding his head, and I know it's giving him some headaches, but he's working hard on it. It's been good to have some real open and frank conversations to help us build on those projects and resolving some of the issues highlighted by the BVI, and with a strong recognition across parties for the need for more and vastly improved training for both officers and members, and we've welcomed the initial findings and recommendations from the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny and the engagement with PwC, and look forward to the progress that we can make over the coming months.
Thank you. I think that's all members spoken, so happy to move to the recommendations. So the recommendations are at paragraph 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 and 1.4 on page 18 of the agenda. The first one, 1.1, Cabinet is to note the progress made on the Council's improvement and recovery. Do I have agreement? Thank you. Cabinet is to agree to receive quarterly reports on the progress. Cabinet is to note the work to develop an enhanced improvement recovery plan. Cabinet agreed to refer this report to full Council for all members to consider and comment on the progress to date. Thank you very much. So, item 11, re-procurement of contract managed services for temporary agency resources. Can I ask Councillor Snell to introduce the report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. This report seeks permission for the re-procurement of the Council's agency worker contract. Since 2011, the Council has worked with a managed service provider for the provision of its agency resources. This model was chosen as it realised the best value for the Council with significant cost reductions and provided a consistent approach to the management of good quality agency workers. Our current MSP, which is Matrix SCM, were awarded the contract in 2015 and their performance has been good throughout. However, the contract expires on the 15th of December 2023, so it's the appropriate time now to consider other arrangements. As we're all aware, and as highlighted by the Leader earlier, this Council has challenging times ahead of it. There is a drive for change throughout the organisation, and this change will require us to have a flexible, skilled workforce, and that in turn means we will undoubtedly require agency staff. Therefore, it's crucial that we get this procurement right and ensure the Council continues to receive a best value service and which keeps the process of procuring agency workers as streamlined as possible. To that end, we have two options that could be viable. We can procure through the Eastern Shire's Purchasing Organisation Managed Services for Temporary Agency Resources Framework, or we can award to Essex County Council for use of their dynamic purchasing system and the utilisation of their recruitment team. So that's basically the options in front of us, and I'll open questions.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. Any member wanting to comment? Councillor Cockshaw.
Well, thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Snell. Just curiously, because do stop me if I'm having one of my dyslexic moments. I'm just where I see the recommendation. It says we've obviously got the two options, and looking through the table of recommendations, that via the ESPRO Master 4 M Star 4 is option A, and then obviously option D being to go to Essex County Council. And in the reasons for recommendation on page 37 at 4.3, the recommended option C or D is set out. I'm a bit. Have I missed something in the report and confused myself slightly as reading through? It didn't seem quite clear when I read through.
Are you talking about A?
Yes.
A is if we were to do the procurement ourselves, do it ourselves and go for agency work. that was an option that was looked at, but of course that would require skills to be held within the council that we don't currently have, and it would also mean extra resource being spent on IT and extra staff to be able to run it. So on top of that, we don't really have the relationship with the agency companies that we would require to get the kind of quality staff that we need in this council. So yes, it was looked at, but it was basically dropped as an option as it was probably not particularly viable at the time.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. Any other? Councillor Coxwell, did you want to? No.
I've realised.
Councillor Arnold?
So just for clarification, a bit like Councillor Coxwell, what we're asking to agree is the current system that we use, or to go to the Essex framework, and that's going to be looked at, and then you're going to go away and with HR and look at that and nail that down. Is that the understanding I've got here?
Yeah, it's quite a mouthful, but we say ESPO M-Star 4 framework. That's just a framework. So there are companies that operate within that framework that we can contract with. So we're going to go. There's not very many, admittedly, and it might well be that the company we're currently using might well be the best option. But it's the right time to look at what options are out there, and also at the same time consider whether the Essex option is a viable one. So we are looking at those options. But yeah, that's the framework that they've got to operate within. So that's not an actual outfit itself.
Sorry if I can just cut. So we're not actually being asked to agree a particular option tonight. We're agreeing to look at the options. Yeah?
Correct.
Any of them? Councillor Carter?
Thank you, Leader. It's just about how the risks are presented in among the four options. I know we're only properly looking at two of them. But on it, it says some specialist agencies may not sign up to supply to this model, which can impact availability of skilled workers needed and could result in off-contract spend. Now, I don't see anything that measures this risk as like a likelihood and how big of a risk it does pose if we were to go with this option or indeed another. So just seeking some clarity from the portfolio holder as is this a big risk or a minor risk?
I'll ask Wendy to deal with that one for me, because she's obviously got a better answer than I would have on this particular subject.
Yes, there may well be. I wouldn't say that was a huge risk, but there are some agencies that may choose not to sign up to the agency agreement, and mainly due to the terms of that agency agreement. And in that case, then obviously we wouldn't be engaging staff through them if they weren't on the framework.
Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Leader. It's really for the officers, I would imagine, that these 3 months, I think it's up on the 15th of December, is 3 months sufficient time to get all this done? And if it doesn't get done, what's option C then?
We have undertaken quite substantive research into the options available. We are at the very, very final stages of looking at the Essex agreement, so I think we will be fairly soon with the outcome. We are quite a way down the line, and we've done an extensive investigation into looking at all the figures and the governance, and we've just got two final pieces to tie off with the Essex agreement.
3 months is fine.
Yes, we should be fine with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members wishing to comment? Okay, so I'll go to the recommendations. Good job I've got the right teeth in for all of this, isn't it? Cabinet to agree, the recommendations are at paragraph 1.1, 1.2 on page 30 of the agenda. 1.1, Cabinet to agree to progress the re-procurement of agency workers contract using the ESPO Mastar 4 framework 653F23, or direct award to Essex County Council through the use of their DPS dynamic purchasing system and through the utilisation of ECC recruitment team. The new contract to commence on the 15th of December 2023 for a period of 3 years with an option to extend for 1 year. Do I have an agreement? 1.2, Cabinet to approve delegation to award to the Director of HR, OD and Transformation in consultation with the Chief Finance Officer and Portfolio Holder in order to ensure maximum lead-in time should services transfer be necessary. Agreed? Thank you very much. So item 12, 2023-24, Quarter 1 forecast revenue and capital outturn. Can I ask Councillor Snell to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Leader. This report sets out the forecast revenue outturn position for 2023-24 for the General Fund, HRA, DSG and the Public Health Grant. For the General Fund, the month 3 General Fund position is a forecast underspend of 1.036 million, including the capitalisation directive of 180.159 million as set out on the table on page 55 of the agenda. The Directorate position is forecast to overspend by 2.605 million against a revised budget of 168.591 million, and that's 1.5% of the budget overspend there. It should be acknowledged that directors with significant overspends are reviewing and will continue to review their budgets to identify mitigating actions to bring them back within their envelopes, and I expect to see an improvement in the next quarter. An estimated underspend of 3.641 million within the Treasury Management function reduces the overall position to 1.036 million, less than the assumed General Fund budgeted levels. It is noted that this underspend would reduce the capitalisation direction by 1.036 million. As a note of caution, however, the accounts for 2020-21 onwards remain open, so it's possible that issues could still be identified that will impact on that current position. The HRA, DSG and Public Health budgets are all forecast to break even, and details can be found in sections 5, 6 and 7 of the report respectively. The General Fund and HRA capital programme positions are set out in section 8. The General Fund programme is forecast to slip by 7.46 million against a budgeted programme of 75 million. The funding remains allocated to specific current schemes and will be reprofiled in subsequent years. However, it has to be noted that this reprofiling will expose the funding to inflationary pressures on costs and therefore capital budgets. This will continue to be assessed on a project-by-project basis. There are currently £119 million worth of General Fund projects currently on hold. Their budgets have been removed from the programme pending a decision on whether they can be reinstated. This will continue to be reviewed as part of the Council's wider review on finances. A revised position will be reported to members as early as practical in the next financial year. Should projects be reinstated, there will need to be further consideration of the impact on potential borrowing and, where this relates to a General Fund project, the associated interest and MRP charges to revenue. The HRA capital programme is on track for delivery. The forecast outturn position set out on this report is based on a number of assumptions, and it's important to highlight the risks that could affect the position as the year progresses. These are detailed in section 4 of the report on page 72 of the agenda. I won't go into those, they're quite clear for all to see and make sober reading, to be perfectly frank. Two more items to note. There is an ongoing assessment of the investment portfolio values, which will need to be reflected in the outturn reports and will be included in the next update scheduled for quarter 2. Lastly, there is an overspend on the ICT budget due in part to Microsoft licensing costs, but also from unachieved capitalisation, which is a pressure of 0.633 million, which reflects the consequences of accounting for IT expenditure through revenue rather than through capital. The technicalities remain under review, but there may well be an impact on MRP, and I'll bring an update on this in quarter 2. There's lots more in the report, but I should leave it there and open for questions.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. Any member would like to comment? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Leader. we've all got to take a responsibility in stabilising the council and reducing the gap in funds, but I feel rather than just breathe a sigh of relief when there's an underspend, I know we've got to work on the overspend. I think that we've got to understand the consequences of the underspend against performance and quality of the service. So, and we should be more inquisitive about that. So, I'd still like to push for better risk management registers and a scoring system, something more visual for members on all service reports and finance reports to be able to really understand the risks and versus what they're seeing on the corporate performance report, so that we can start to work together to mitigate and find controls to put in place for those risks. And I know that some work is being done on that, and I know officers are receiving more training around risk management, so I can only say I totally agree with that, and it's great that we're doing that. One thing I've noticed with the figures on Appendix 1 is that there seems to be a double recording on adult social care and culture and communities. So the figures for Averley Hub, Travellers refurbishment work, South Ockenden Hub, they appear twice in the report, and it totals about 205,000. So I don't know whether that's been totalled in twice, or and just needs to be looked at, or whether it's just visually there but it's not been totalled in. Am I making sense there?
If I may, I'll leave that point for Steve to answer in a second. With regard to your other point, yeah, I mean, be under no illusion, when we talk about underspends, there's no triumph in that. This is just a realistic and honest appraisal of where we are right now. And it is with the full understanding that at any time, for example, we get the next set of accounts coming, that could all change, and that underspend could very quickly become an overspend. So it's a report of where we are right now. I say there is no triumphalism there. It's just a statement of facts as they are as we know them right now. And in terms of risk management, you are quite right. There is a piece of work that has been done on that, and it is going to standards and audit next month for the members to get a good look at that, and hopefully that will improve our risk management and also our opportunity management as well, because obviously sometimes with risks you can get opportunities and vice versa. So that is something we are definitely looking at, and it is right that we do so, because you're right, we need to do that, and it's a wonder that we've never been doing it really before. But I'll pass you over to Steve for the last bit regarding the figures now.
Thank you, Councillor. So some of the schemes, they are in there twice, as you can see. It could be that the expenditure is split into different categories and we're reported on different lines. So some might be a capitalised staffing element, some might be physical goods. But I will double check that and come back for you. Equally, some of the numbers do look the same when you're looking side by side, but as you'll appreciate, that's the agreed budget compared to the forecast outturn. But I'll pick up the detail and we'll come back to you.
Thank you. Any other member wishing to comment? No. I just a couple of comments from me. I mean, it's disappointing that and it's no one's fault in this room, that our accounts still haven't been audited for previously, which could have quite a considerable impact on our financial situation now. And you're quite right, we need to get the overspends under control, bring them back down. But I've got every confidence in Jonathan and Stephen. They will be able to do that, led by the Councillor Snell, of course. So if there's no other comments or questions, we'll move to recommendations, which is recommendations 1.1 through to 1.6. That Cabinet note the overall forecast general fund outturn position for period 3 is an underspend of 1.036 million. Do you have agreement? That Cabinet note that the directors with significant adverse variances will continue to review directorate budgets and identify mitigating action to resolve the forecast pressure against the 23 and 24 budget. 1.3, that Cabinet note the potential risk to the position noted in section 4, and that the following specific risks noted within the report. A, there are ongoing assessments of the investment portfolio values which will need to be reflected on an ongoing basis with the next updated schedule for quarter 2. The requirement to change the accounting for a cloud-based IT cost continue to be assessed in both the current and prior years and is likely to have a material short-term impact. And C, there are ongoing wider financial accounting assessments related to the prior periods which may also need to be considered. Agreed. 1.4, the Cabinet note that the HRA, DSG and the public health projects to deliver the budget within existing funding envelopes. Do we agree? That Cabinet note and comment on the capital programme and the current projected slippage of 7.46 million and the impact on MRP. Is that agreed? 1.6, that the Cabinet note that the position will remain provisional as further substantive work is undertaken, notably in preparation of historic accounts, which could have an impact on current or future years. Is it agreed? Thank you. Item 13, asset disposal programme. Recommended for the next tranche of properties for disposal. Is it if we go into private session? This one.
If you want to, yeah. If you want to go to exempt.
Yeah.
You just need to answer. There's a member of public there.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
So, do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it? Go to the next report, maybe do it later on.
The reports are public, it's just the appendices that are exempt, so they can be presented and then we can go into exempt session.
Okay.
Just not to discuss the pink papers.
Okay, so the next item is we don't discuss the pink papers until we go into an exempt session. So can I ask Councillor Snell to introduce the report?
I do apologise, Leader. Yeah, I'll start again. So this report seeks for Cabinet approval for a tranche of property assets to be placed on the market and sold in line with the improvement and recovery plan. Aware that we can't really discuss very much without going into exempt session, I'll just say that there are a list of properties on the pink pages for our consideration tonight, and we would really need to be in exempt session to discuss those.
Okay, so apologies to members and officers. What I was going to suggest, because there is a member of the public here, is that we move on to the other two items that are not exempt and then come back to all the exempt items.
They have exempt elements, but you can still deal with the reports.
Right, okay. So,
Carry on.
okay,
Deal with the
yeah.
reports. Just don't do the and then we'll go into exempt afterwards. Because
We still deal with that report.
just don't talk about the exempt. The pink
Where's the
papers.
recommendation then?
The recommendations are in public. These recommendations
Right,
all can
okay.
be dealt with. 1.1.
Sorry, Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Leader. Just a query, but I mean, could we not take the report? I mean, unless Cabinet members have got any questions on the actual sites themselves, which are on the pink paper, then presumably we can just take the report anyway. If Cabinet have got questions on the site, then if we come back to it, but I don't think there will be. I can't.
Can if you're all agreeable to
You're
that.
Yeah.
agreeable that you
I mean, if we're in
can do
agreement
that.
with the sites and there are no questions, then
Are there
presumably.
questions on the site?
There are questions. Sorry, there are questions on the site.
Okay.
So what I've just been told
As
is
we
that
were.
to note we'll note publicly the next three items, but then go into exempt session so that members are then able to be able to discuss it, if that's okay. Yeah. Okay, sorry about it. So we're noting the asset disposal programme, and we're going to go into exempt session later to discuss items. Yep. And then item 14, which is the delivery of the Thames Freeport Accountable Body. Should we note the report, and then we'll move into exempt session for that to be discussed further? Yeah. You can speak on it then, yeah. Item 15, the financial strategy, that's also been noted, and then we'll go into exempt session. Am I right in thinking that we come out of exempt session to then give our decisions? That would be the correct process. Right, okay. So we'll now go into closed session, and we'll come back to confirm the recommendations for items 13, 14 and 15. Thank you. So welcome back to members of the public that will be viewing. So we move on to item 13, which is asset disposal programme, recommended next tranche of properties for disposal. Whilst we're not able to discuss some of the things that we talked about, I think I'd be right in saying, speaking for colleagues, this is not an easy decision. It's a difficult decision that we have to take, but we need to do this to pare down on the debt. So I will move to the recommendations of 1.1, 1.2. On page 99, we recommend that the attached schedule exempt of property assets are now put onto the market and sold. Do I have agreement? Agreed. 1.2, this recommendation for disposal is following recommendations by the Strategic Property Board and the Finance Recovery Board. Cabinet will delegate authority to agree the method and terms of disposal to the Director of Place in consultation with the Property Board and FRB. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 14, which is the delivery of the Thames report, accountable body. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Leader. This is a great opportunity for Thurrock, and as the Thames report is forecasted to generate 21,000 jobs, £46 billion of public and private investment, and 956 million of retained business rates over 25 years to invest in order to support regeneration in line with Freeport policy objectives. It's a game changer for the local economy, and the Council is determined to do its part to support the Freeport and to see it succeed in generating the jobs, investment and economic benefits that have been forecast. Thurrock Council has a number of functions in relation to the Freeport as a partner, driving delivery and maximising benefits, but also as the accountable body and as a billing authority for business rates. And this report focuses on the Council's role as the accountable body, which is specifically referenced in the Secretary of State's direction to the Council, to ensure that the accountable body function is exercised to the satisfaction of commissioners, and the delivery of the accountable body function is reflected in the improvement and recovery plan. The report describes the responsibilities and obligations of the accountable body, including ensuring financial systems are in place and funding is properly administered, also ensuring appropriate control, monitoring and reporting mechanisms are in place, providing technical advice and assessing delivery risk and associated financial risk. The governance mechanisms within the Council are outlined in the report, but please bear in mind that this is a new approach and a great opportunity to work collaboratively with the stakeholders within the Thames report. But it's in its infancy and we want to get it right. So I'm sure as we go there will be a need to adapt or change those mechanisms. But to start us off in the right direction, recommendation 1.5 seeks to establish a Freeport committee as a subcommittee of Cabinet for work in relation to the Freeport to demonstrate that the Council takes its role extremely seriously and wants to be open and transparent about it. But it's important to note that this subcommittee will not discharge the functions of the Executive Cabinet. And I'd like to amend recommendation 1.4 as outlined on the extra sheet that you've been given, which is basically just to include the Cabinet member for governance, i.e. me at this stage, being consulted along with the leader, monitoring officer and chief exec to finalise the consolidated business case. Recommendation 1.7 is to note that there's a need for a legally binding agreements which will be required by both Council and Commissioners to effectively discharge obligations and to manage and monitor how money is spent. There will be further reports to Cabinet on both this issue and progress, together with reports in relation to the Thames Freeport seed capital projects. While there is still work to do, the Council and the Thames between the Council and Thames Freeport on governance mechanisms, this is a great start to what I hope will be an excellent and prosperous relationship for our borough.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Any other member wish to speak before I put the recommendations? No. Okay, so we move on to the recommendations. Recommendations 1.1 through to 1.7 to agree, and they can be found on pages 122 to 123 of the agenda. With the amendment that you'll see in front of you. 1.1, approve the proposed arrangements of the Council to oversee the delivery of the Thames Freeport. Do I have agreement? Agreed. Note the resource implication associated with the delivery of Thames Freeport. 1 million DLUC capacity funding, 2.257 million retained business rates, and 25 million seed capital funding. Do I have agreement?
Agreed.
Note the progress made to merge the Thames Freeport final business case and addendum previously approved by the Cabinet into a single document, a consolidated Thames Freeport business case for submission to the Government to prepare the Memorandum of Understanding between Government and the Thames Freeport partners. Do I have agreement? Agreed. 1.4. Delegate authority to the Chief Financial Officer, Section 151 Officer, in agreement with the Commissioners and in consultation with the Interim Director of Law and Governance, the Monitoring Officer, the Chief Executive, the Cabinet, Member for Transformational Change, Communities and Governance, and the Leader to 1. Finalise the consolidated Thames Freeport business case. 2. Sign the finalised consolidated Thames Freeport business case on behalf of the Council. And 3. Submit the consolidated Thames Freeport business case to the Government on behalf of the Council. Do I have agreement on that? 1.5. Approve the establishment of the Thames Freeport Committee and a Cabinet subcommittee as set out in paragraph 3.7. Note the progress made in developing business cases for Thames Freeport seed capital projects, and that a further report will be brought back to the Cabinet in relation to the Thames Freeport seed capital projects. Note that legally binding agreements will need to be established between the Council, Thames Freeport governing body, Thames Freeport operating company, and the recipients of the grant funding. These agreements are to support the Council to effectively discharge its obligations as the accountable body and the billing authority, and also to effectively manage and monitor how money is spent in relation to Thames Freeport projects and the operation of Thames Freeport. These issues will be brought back to the Cabinet in a further report. Right. Thank you. Item 15, Financial Strategy Update. Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Leader. You told me to do a very quick update. It's not going to happen. So this report provides an update on work being undertaken to address the Council's financial challenges, and there is a focus on 3 areas. That's financial strategy, divestment of previous investments, and other financial management initiatives. Broadly, the financial strategy is all about recovering the Council's financial position and focuses on the £1.035 billion of divestments, generating £150 million of capital receipts to pay down debt and reducing reliance on borrowing to fund the General Fund Capital Programme. There is also ongoing work to save £18.2 million from the revenue budget for each of the next 2 years and a further £13.65 million for each of the following 3 years. These are ambitious targets and they might well change over time, we shall have to see. As well as that, we have a series of reviews looking to improve our Treasury management strategy and MRP policy, our finance structure, culture and improvement plans and risk management, which should be of interest to Councillor Arnold, as we mentioned it earlier. All of which should drive savings and efficiencies across the Council. The divestment workstream encompasses 14 investments covering £1.035 billion of original investments, of which 5 major ones are currently in progress, and we aim to have divested of or have underway 93% of the Council's investment portfolio by March 2024. The recovery of the 7% balance is currently in planning. 2 of the divestments are in administration, which is Toucan and JLG JCF, and effectively out of the Council's control. The others are and will be actioned by the Council with governance and monitoring in place to ensure we get best value. Litigation options are being explored and will be actioned where appropriate. With MRP accounting for around 5% on both capital investments and the capitalisation direction and interest rates of around 7%, we have set a hurdle rate of 12% when making decisions on which assets to divest from. Basically, if an asset is returning less than 12%, it should be considered for divestment. Finally, I suppose for now, the Council did not have the skills or capacity to manage these large investments when it first entered into them, which was contrary to the guidance on local government investments. It's only currently able to manage the portfolio with substantial external advice. To recognise and address this point, we are asked to confirm the following statement, which is that the main objective is to optimise sums and timing of the receipts and recover as much of the investment amounts as the Council has made, and to repay the borrowings as long as doing so secures best value using and demonstrating the criteria set out in this report. There's lots more in the report, but I shall leave it there for any questions should there be any.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. Any questions or comments from members? No. Okay, I'll go straight to the recommendations, which can be found on pages 326 to 327. It's recommended that Cabinet notes the progress on the investment recovery and divestment strategy. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Notes the progress being made on the other financial actions.
Agreed.
Notes the urgent ED2 decisions made, copies of which are included in the appendices to this report, covering divestments and asset sales.
Agreed.
Is that agreed? Yeah. Agrees the continued use of necessary advisers is required until completion of the work associated with divestment of and the recovery of value of investments. Sorry. Including the conduct of litigation subject to the review of programmes currently being undertaken by the Council's officers to be reported to Cabinet in November 23, and the leader, finance portfolio holder, chief executive and commissioners being consulted before advisers are instructed on the new work stream.
Agreed.
Agrees that each council director involved in delivering the strategy is in consultation with the leader, finance portfolio holder, the Section 151 officer, the monitoring officer, where the director does not fulfil one of these roles, and the commissioners is authorised within their professional area to A, subject to recommendation 2.1, to procure and appoint the advisers using the most expeditious and efficient procurement process which is lawfully available under the Public Contract Regulation 2015, and that the financial threshold in the Council's contract procedure rules are waived for this purpose, and B, to take all action necessary within appropriate budgets to ensure the implementation of the Council's recovery strategy if timescales do not allow for a report to Cabinet, as long as full update is provided at the next available Cabinet meeting. Do I have agreed? Thank you. The Director of Law and Governance is authorised to commence legal proceedings for the potential claims set out in Appendix B of this report, where there is supportive advice from the King's Counsel, together with any associated action after consultations with the Leader, Chief Executive, Section 151 Officer and Commissioners, subject to reports on progress being brought to Cabinet. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
The Section 151 Officer, in consultation with the Leader and Portfolio Holder, the Monitoring Officer and Commissioners, is given delegated authority to take all actions necessary to implement the divestment strategy where a divestment meets the criteria set out in the directions subject to reports on the progress being made to members.
Agreed.
Is that agreed? Confirms that the main objective is to reduce the Council's exposure to financial risk by delivering a divestment strategy that optimises sums and timings, receipts to repay the borrowings as long as doing so secures best value using its criteria set out in this report.
Agreed.
Is that agreed? Agrees an indicative hurdle rate of 12%, i.e. 7% PWLB rate and a 5% MRP, is set for investment, yield and return, with anything yielding less being put forward for sale, subject to the detail of the individual investment, the Council's contractual obligations and the ability to deliver value for money. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Notes and agrees the review of the programme as set out in paragraph 4.7 and requests regular reports back to the Cabinet on progress of the financial strategy.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you, everyone. That concludes the business of the meeting, and I now declare the meeting closed at 8:30. Thank you, everyone.